No, it's an honor to be. It's an honor to be given such a title, if you like, and yeah, maybe because I tend to speak out quite. It's an honor. Yeah.
Okay. And Odom Agu. I hope I'm pronouncing this very well.
Odom Agu. You've been doing your research, yeah.
You know, when you're interviewing, yes,
it means
when you're interviewing, when you're interviewing someone of your portfolio, you have to do your proper research, yeah.
Oh, you've done a lot of research. Not many people know about that. Yes, tiger, like it's Igbo, and somebody with the heart of a tiger and the heart of a lion. That's why. That's what it means. And again, a lot of people tend to call me that, so it's quite an honor once again. And
okay. And Odogu Eze.
Who's been giving you all this information? Goodness
no,
me.
Don't worry.
King of the warriors.
Yes, I know that one. I had to ask that before I say it on air. What does it mean exactly?
King of the warriors. That's what that one means. You know.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's an honor.
Is there any other that I left out that we should know?
There are so many. Ayonfe Olong. That means the beloved of the Lord. And then Ayonfe Olong, the beloved of the Lord. And then there are so many. There are so many.
Okay. And what does Precious call you?
Ah, that's a secret. Maybe we should ask her.
Yes, Precious, what do you call your husband?
Come and say. Come on. Come and say.
No, this is just a social platform.
He's being shy. Don't mind her. She calls me Baba Aragon, Baba Lotana.
Okay. Baba Lotana. All right, we won't ask for the bedroom names. This is.
They call me another one, Akodayo, strange person. That's the Yoruba one. But there are so many, you know. But it's an honor to be recognized.
Thank you so much for honoring me. I mean, to be on my platform. I really appreciate.
My pleasure.
But before we get on,
yes, sorry.
Before we get on to serious business, who exactly is Chief Femi Fani-Kayode? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Well, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, 16th October 1960. And I went to school from the age of 7. I was at school in the UK. I went to prep school there, Homewood House in Langton Green, Tunbridge Wells, Kent. From there, I went to Brighton College. And then from there, I went to a school called Harrow School, which in my view is the best school in England. And then went to Kelly College in the West Country. From there, I went to University of London, SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies, where I did my first degree. Then I went to Cambridge University after that, where I did my second degree. My father had been to Cambridge. My grandfather was at Cambridge. All studied law. My older brother was at Cambridge. And my great-grandfather was at Durham University many years ago. After doing Cambridge, I came back to Nigeria, did the Nigerian bar. I was called to the bar, worked in my father's law firm for a number of years, which until I was made a full partner. Fani-Kayode and Shorimimo. And then after that, I was there for a number of years. Then I went into politics around 1991, thereabouts. And that's where my political career started. And I've been quite active in not just politics, but writing. I write essays on current affairs. I've been doing that for almost 20, 30 years now. I write poems, which is something that is very important to me. I love literature. I love history. These are things that I consider to be a pleasure. But I feel passionately about my country, passionate about what's going on in the country. And I've been at it, if you like, for a number of years. I went to Bible college in 1993 in Accra, Ghana. And I was there for 2 years, where I did a degree in theology. And then I came back to Nigeria, joined NADECO, which was a movement to enthrone somebody called MK Abiola, who had won an election and had been, deprived of his mandate. And I joined NADECO, and unfortunately I came back to Nigeria in '95, but I had to go back into exile because, I was one of those they wanted to arrest at that time. So I went back to Ghana, stayed in Ghana up until the year 2000, and I believe it was 2000, when I came back to Nigeria, met with President Olusegun Obasanjo around 2001, and I was with him from that point, more or less every other day, up until the time that we did the election in 2003. I joined his government. I was a spokesman, special assistant on public affairs, and I spoke for him. I defended him and went after his enemies. A difficult job. Did that for 3 years. Then I became Minister of Culture and Tourism. Then I was redeployed to aviation. After aviation, we left office in 2007. 2007, up to date, I've been very active in the ranks of the opposition. And I've been very active in a number of areas in terms of public commentary and so on and so forth. And of course, in 2015, because you were one of those that came to Nigeria as one of the international observers, international journalists that interviewed us for the 2015 campaign when I was spokesman for President Jonathan's campaign organization. And we fought a very hard election, if you remember, at the time. And I was deeply involved in that. And then after that, of course, we lost the election, unfortunately. And virtually everything I said would happen if we lost ended up happening. And here we are 5 years later, and going through the tribulations and trials that we're going through in this country, of which there are very, very many. So that's and the last 5 years I've spent more or less leading or being one of those that leads the opposition, the leader of the resistance, one of those that has been very vocal and very committed to ensuring that this government is kept on its toes and to ensure equity and justice in our country. And I'm also committed to ensuring that this government and this president is eventually voted out together with his party. And I've had a lot to say over that period of time.
Don't go fast. We still want to know about you. So what is your normal day like?
My normal day? Well, we've been locked down for the last 1 month or so.
Unfortunately,
of course, which is a real problem for the whole world, really. So normalcy there's a new norm now, which is that everything happens from home, which in a way is not too bad because I spend a lot more time with my beautiful family, my wife, my children. And of course, I have 9 children now. 5 beautiful daughters and 4 very handsome sons, So, and all the older ones live abroad. But my sons are here with me, with my wife. So when you ask what my day is like, under lockdown, very quiet. And as you can imagine, spend a lot of time with the family. But before then, of course, I was very busy, always traveling over the country, always researching, always working hard and trying to make ends meet, trying to take care of my family, and also trying my best to stand against what I believe is a tyrannous government, a government of tyranny, a government that has divided our country, and a government which I believe has actually destroyed the future of our people and our country. And that in itself is a very, very difficult task, a risky task. I've been locked up a number of times. I've been persecuted. I've suffered a lot. But, all things count for good. We count it all as joy. I'm a man of faith. I'm a man of strength. And, I'm prepared to pay any price for the truth. I'm prepared to do anything to ensure there's equity in my country, to ensure that the oppressed are represented and spoken for, and to ensure that the right thing is done.
And speaking of COVID-19, the whole world is on standstill. The whole world, is stuck because of the COVID-19, the coronavirus. Do you think Nigerian government is doing enough to try and curb the virus?
Well, let me put it to you like this. I believe there is an element of commitment from every reasonable human being to ensure that our people are safer and to ensure that we're in a position to fight this terrible plague. But if you look at the facts and statistics, it's a little bit worrying. Why do I say that? we have a country of 200 million people, and yet out of 200 million people, only 10,000 people have been tested. And that's where the problem starts. We've only had about 10,000 people, according to government figures, that have been tested for this disease. And in view of that, you have to ask yourself, you know, what really is our situation? Because 10,000 tests cannot possibly reflect the, you know, what's really going on in this country in terms of the spread of the infection. What makes it worse is that this disease, you know, 90% of the people that have this disease are asymptomatic, which means that nobody knows. Most people, 9 out of 10 people, don't even know that they have it. They show no symptoms, and yet they can still infect others in that situation. So if you look at it like that, it's a very, very complex, disturbing, and daunting task, and a very frightening situation, because most people, 9 out of 10, don't know they have it, as if they have it. But of every 10, 9 don't know they have it. They can still spread it. And once they start spreading, it goes on and on and on. So I think the first thing that we need to do in this country, quite apart from lockdowns, quite apart from palliatives for those that don't have money to take care of their family, quite apart from all that, and I appreciate we need to do all that, the first thing is we have to get more testing done. More people have to be tested in order for us to know what we're dealing with. The more the tests, the easier it is to know how widespread this disease is, and then we really know what to do. Quite apart from that, I'm a great believer in the lockdown. I don't think it's wise to let it be lifted too early. Social distancing, ensuring that we keep ourselves clean, we sanitize, and all those things. But at the same time, in our context, in our country, you need to ensure that you also have palliatives in place. Because our people, I mean, Nigeria under Buhari has become the world's capital for poverty in the world, according to the World Bank, the IMF, and a number of other. So we need to ensure that the palliatives are there. People don't have food to eat. So you've got to do both. Even if you keep people at home, you have to make sure, when you keep people at home, you have to make sure they have food, you have to make sure they have money in their account, you have to make sure they have access to their basic needs in order for them to be able to take care of themselves and their family.
But Chief, I realize that there's also some resistance from some people in Nigeria. Even here on the comments as you're talking, I see someone say that there's no coronavirus in Nigeria, it's all propaganda. I mean, so do you think there's enough awareness for people that still believe that coronavirus doesn't exist?
There's no doubt about that. You see, look, the whole coronavirus, nobody can say there is no coronavirus. Of course there's a coronavirus. There is a virus. It's a very complex situation, a complex problem, which would take us a number of hours to really discuss in depth. But let me just say this. The fact of the matter is that most of the deaths that are caused by coronavirus are actually not caused by the virus itself, but by related diseases. In other words, underlying causes, which are provoked, and coronavirus itself acts as a catalyst for that. So what you're dealing with is a disease that takes people's lives, and they may die from different things because they're in a weakened situation, breaks down the immune system, and they begin to die like flies. And it's a very real problem. So it's real and it's there. And the way to fight it is to, one, identify what you're dealing with, two, ensure that there is social distancing, three, ensure you do have lockdowns, four, ensure that people are taken care of, and five, be very sensitive to the fact that this is an extremely dangerous thing. And my greatest fear is that, because if you look at what's going on in places like Kano in Nigeria, where literally I'm told that one person began to spread it amongst a number of others, and people people have been dying like flies there. That is the sort of template that we need to avoid, and we need to ensure must not or does not happen in this country.
And I hear that, I hear that physicians have also absconded in Kano.
Indeed, they say 70% of doctors have run away from Kano, and you know, but you know, we're back to the whole issue. The whole issue is very simple. We've only tested for 10,000 people, and out of 200 million. So we don't know where we are with this disease. There have not been enough tests. And even though the government, I must say, has tried their very best, and some of the state governments have done reasonably well, but we could do a lot better, and we need to take it far more seriously than we're doing. Now, Italy, China, Spain, the UK, the United States of America, certainly Germany, where you are, I suspect have reached a peak. and things will begin to get that will save the world from this plague. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm a realist, and I'm well read, and I'm well exposed, and I understand the way the world system works, and I'm smart enough to understand that it's not everything that you see. You don't, you know, it's not what you see. That's not what you get. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. The whole issue of the virus itself, how it came about, the purpose of the virus, what is the reason, how come those that created it, and I don't believe it came from animals, I believe it had some kind of human input in terms of creation. I believe it was an affliction that was unleashed on the world from China. I also happen to believe that those that did this had a purpose, and I happen to believe, I mean, many may not share this view, I happen to believe that the real reason for this evil virus that's being spread all over the place, and those that created it knew would be spread all over the place, is to pave the way for this, you know, super magic vaccine, which will now be applied to everybody. And that in itself will be a challenge. Now, I don't, you know, it's an area that if we went into, it's a very deep area. But the vaccine itself, if you look at the history of vaccinations throughout Africa, throughout the world, and what they've done in many parts of Africa over the years, it raises a lot of eyebrows. Now, if you say that this whole thing was created, in other words, a problem was created, and then there's a reaction to that problem from people, oh, we need help, people are dying. And you now say, we need help, that's the reaction. And then the very people that created the problem in the first place are the ones that now come up with a solution. It's called problem, reaction, solution. It's what you call a Hegelian dialectic. You know, and it's well known in certain circles. I would suggest you read the works of people like David Icke and so many other people on this, and you will find that there's far more. Now, when it comes to the Gates, the Melinda Gates and so on and so forth, she made a statement which I consider to be something that was not so much out of concern, but was a pronouncement in the realm of the spirit. It was a prophetic statement which needed to be cancelled. She said she sees lots and lots of dead bodies all over Africa. And she said this at a time when the disease was not so rampant in Africa, but was rampant everywhere else. And her husband had said a couple of years earlier that that this disease was coming. He literally predicted it. He said it would exactly what happened. He said it was going to happen, and so on and so forth. And you know, such things, there's far more to it than meets the eye. And it's important that those of us that are believers counter such statements and say that may well be mentioned. But the scripture says, who is he that saith the thing that shall cometh to pass, when the Lord God of hosts commanded it not? Africa may be vulnerable. Africa may be poor. Africa may be difficult to administer. Africa may be seen as the backwoods of the entire world, where people can be treated as guinea pigs and people can die like flies and nobody cares. But Africa still has God. And we reject that. We reject this idea that our people will die like flies, even if that is the plan and that is the agenda. We're praying people and we believe in God, and we reject that. And I believe that God will stand for us and see us through, no matter what the intentions of anybody might be. And I might add this. Those that say such things, when they're not believers, they don't believe in God. Some of these people are total atheists. You have to, and self-proclaimed atheists, you know, and you have to understand where they're coming from, who they're working for, what their agenda is. It's when you've done the research on that and what their history is. And if you doubt what I'm saying, read what Robert Kennedy and Stone, Trump's friend, and so many other people have said about the Gates. Read what they've said about what's going on with 5G. Read what they said about what's going on with the coronavirus, its real origins. Read what they've said about what the intention is, what this vaccine intends to do, how they have what they call nanos in the vaccine, and how that will now all tie in with the end time prophecies of the Bible. Complex area, difficult for people to understand or accept. But people don't have to understand or accept it because it's going to happen anyway. But one thing I know, God will not leave us, and God is with us. And we need not fear, because he's a faithful God. Yeah.
All right. So speaking about China, you've been very vocal on the recolonization of Africa by China. Do you really think Africa can survive without the Chinese?
Of course they can. I mean, you know, the record of the Chinese in Africa is atrocious, and they treat Africans like animals. They do that in China. That's been proved over and over again. They treat us like animals in Africa itself. They own half of Zambia now. They come in with loans, and once you can't repay those loans, they become very nasty. And it's a recolonization through, or a colonization through debt. That's what they're doing, and they're very brazen about it. They have no human rights in their own parts of the world. Therefore, they can't export anything that is possibly akin to human rights or decency. And their role in this whole coronavirus thing, at the end of the day, they're going to come out looking very, very bad, because a lot of questions are being asked about their role. So even if you love China, which is a very difficult thing for any black person or African to do, their role in the coronavirus, the way it came to pass, the way in which they manipulated the World Health Organization to ensure that the truth didn't come out for a very long time. And Trump has a very, very good point there. And by the way, I should say that Trump is one of those that I believe in strongly and that stood against this evil agenda which is unfolding in the world. And God is using it mightily. Take it or leave it, that's the truth. But Trump exposed them. And I know that when America comes out of this, and she will, when the West comes out, and she will, all of us will, China will need to prepare itself for a massive payback for the damage they've done to the world, the number of people that have died, the number of businesses that have crumbled, the economic recession and depression that's coming as a consequence of this, and the suffering that the world has seen. They will have to pay a terrible price for what they have inflicted on the world.
All right, let's now talk about Nigeria, the country that you are very passionate about, your country that you love dearly. I mean, I've spoken to you.
But you know that.
I know that. But I have one question before we dwell deep into Nigeria. When you look at President Muhammadu Buhari, what do you see as Chief Femi Fani-Kayode?
That's a very, very difficult, provocative question. But let me start by saying this. I do not hate President Buhari. I don't have hate for anybody. I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and it is not in me to hate anybody. What I hate are the things that his government has done over the last 5 years. I have a few friends in the government because I'm a politician and I know a lot of people across party lines. But because you're my friend or associate does not mean to say that I will not call you out. If I choose to speak to you privately, I will. If I choose to speak against you publicly, I will. My position for the last 5 years is to call out this government, is to try and keep them on their toes. Why? Because I want them to do the right thing. But the more we try, the harder we try, the worse it gets. President Buhari has divided our country on ethnic and religious lines. President Buhari has introduced the Fulanization agenda in our country. President Buhari has introduced an Islamist agenda in our country. President Buhari literally